Lassoin Leroy is the 20th episode of the third season of the Doris Day Show. This is directed by Peter Baldwin, and there will be spoilers from now as I discuss what happens in this episode. I won't go into a tremendous amount of detail, but I will discuss ultimately what happens in this, and also one scene that I just absolutely loved. I was very excited when I saw the title for this because I assumed correctly that Leroy was back for an episode, and I love Leroy. I think he's absolutely brilliant, and I was really upset when he left the show, so it's nice that every now and then he comes along, and in this one he's actually inviting Doris and the boys, and he also invites Myrna to go to a rodeo where he is competing, and he wins. He wins the $20,000. However, although he's planning on using that money to buy a ranch, he starts to spend a little frivolously. Now, it's nothing too insane, but he takes Doris and Myrna to a restaurant. He buys photographs that the photographer is taking at the restaurant. He buys souvenirs. He does a little bit of gambling. Nothing too heavy, again, but still enough that makes Doris concerned that if Leroy carries on the way he is, he's not going to have any money left for his ranch, and he almost gets roped into a different kind of farming scheme. I won't say what it is, but it certainly wasn't what I expected, and it's kind of good fun to see how he's spending this money. And then, and as I said, these are spoilers, Doris decides to keep the money on Leroy's behalf just until he can buy the ranch, and she hides it in a toaster. However, and I will say putting paper money in a toaster sounds like a terrible idea in general, but at the beginning of the episode, in the opening scene, we learn that their toaster is actually broken. And a little later on in the episode, while Doris is out, Ethel comes over to get some donations to raise money for the library, and Toby and Billy say that they can have the broken toaster. It works. It still makes toast. It's just not great because at that moment, Doris was actually out buying a new one. And of course, the boys don't know that Leroy's money is in the toaster. And this gives us my favourite scene in the whole thing, where Doris comes back home, finds out what has happened. I will say she was completely unfair to Toby and Billy. It's not often that she acts in a way that I don't agree with, because I think Doris Martin is generally a very level-headed, wonderful character. But she was really unfair to Toby and Billy, saying that they shouldn't, she said, I'm paraphrasing, but she said they shouldn't have given away a toaster without knowing what was inside of it, which is ludicrous. What would be inside a toaster other than toast? So she's obviously panicking. She's responding out of panic, and she runs to this auction and gets there just in time and enters a bidding war for her toaster, and of course ultimately ends up getting the toaster back, and it's delightful, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thought it was a really great episode. We got a lot of Leroy, and I say that because I thought maybe we wouldn't get too much of him, just a little bit, but actually he was in it a really good amount, so I really rather enjoyed that. I don't know if this is the last we see of Leroy. I haven't looked ahead. I do know some spoilers about the future of the show, but I'm not going to go into them here. But I don't know if this is the end of Leroy. Hopefully not, but even if it is, it's a really fun episode. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. Very funny. Sure, Doris didn't behave in the best way all of the time, but nevertheless, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And I guess let that be a lesson. If you're going to give away a toaster, make sure you check what's inside of it first. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. Lassoing Leroy is a really brilliant episode.